Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar, Introducing the ENVI Ecosystem, Making the Benefits of Imagery Accessible. My name is Dawn Hutton. I'm the Program Manager for our Enterprise Solutions at ENVI Geospatial, and I'll be the moderator for this webinar. Before we get started today, we just have a couple of housekeeping items to go through. We are recording the session, and over the next couple of days, we'll email you a link to the recording and the slides. In the lower right-hand corner of our dashboard, you'll find a link to the slides if you want to download them immediately. We also have included a link to the ENVI Ecosystem webpage where you can find additional information on today's products. All attendees are muted during the presentation, and we will take questions at the end. As you think of questions, I encourage you to enter them into the questions chat box located on the left-hand side. We hope this session is informative, but we're only just beginning to scratch the surface. If you'd like to discuss a particular solution or want more details, just click on the Talk With Us button and fill out the form. And lastly, we encourage you to take the survey at the end of the webinar by clicking on the pink icon at the very bottom called Take Survey. Seems pretty obvious. Your feedback is very important to us, so I hope you'll take the time to complete the survey. Joining me today are our two presenters, David Burridge and Zach Norman. David has been with the company for nearly 16 years working in image analysis and exploitation. Dave's most recent focus is bringing automation of image analytics to the cloud. He is the director of our enterprise solutions and leads the team responsible for ENVI Inform, which we're going to learn about more today. Zach is a product manager. He's been with the company for the past 8 years and is very knowledgeable about our products, and particularly ENVI. He's great at understanding the direction of the market and ensuring our technology meets these needs, such as with ENVI Connect, which we're also going to hear about today. We also have a guest speaker joining Dave and Zach. Please welcome Khalil Negron. Khalil is the product manager for the ENVI Ecosystem. He is also a former Navy image analyst. Khalil is going to help weave how the ENVI Ecosystem can benefit an organization. You're welcome to read more about each of these speakers in our short bios by clicking the little arrow underneath our photos. All right, now for the reason why you're here today, I'm going to turn things over to Dave so he can get us started. Dave?
Thanks, Dawn. Hello, and welcome to our webinar. My name is David Burridge. For our agenda today, our aim is to tell you about the ENVI ecosystem, what it's used for, and how you can benefit from it. To achieve this, we'll use a scenario that demonstrates how the ecosystem works in different ways to enable collaboration and efficiency. So, we plan to describe the scenario, provide a quick outline of the ecosystem, including the products it contains. Then we'll walk through the scenario, showing how the ENVI ecosystem can be used. We'll conclude with a quick summary and answer any questions. For our example, we will have the ecosystem operating in action after severe storm damage. We chose this scenario because it's one that we felt could tell a simple story of how our technologies could be used together. In 2020, Hurricane Delta made landfall in the United States, close to New Orleans, Louisiana. The storm is reported to have caused nearly $3 billion worth of damage, and, when viewed from aerial imagery, one can see the destruction and widespread damage that Delta wrought upon the South. Using this as our scenario, we wanted to demonstrate how the ENVI ecosystem can be leveraged to facilitate disaster response efforts. In the scenario, we will explain how you can use the ecosystem in different ways and for different groups of people working towards a common goal to accomplish some of the jobs that occur in a post-disaster response. But first, let's talk about the ENVI ecosystem, what it provides, and the solutions it is made of. The ENVI ecosystem is a family of solutions based on ENVI that allows people in an organization to collaborate and get better results more quickly. For this presentation, we'll be using 3 different personas to highlight collaboration between the people that get involved in imagery analysis. First, there are the imagery experts. These people are used to analysing imagery and looking at the details, creating workflows to process that data and understanding the technology of the data acquisition. Second, image analysts who work on the image but perhaps don't have or need deeper technical understanding of the imagery experts. They have a better understanding of the purpose and a better understanding of how to exploit the imagery towards that purpose. Finally, decision makers. The people that use the information derived from the imagery, perhaps alongside other data, but don't really need to see the tools or techniques used to generate the information. Simply put, they just need that to make a decision. Of course, these are just examples. Sometimes these roles are played by a single person, sometimes by more people. One of the great things about the ENVI ecosystem is the way that the products come together to provide a number of capabilities. This slide shows us a brief overview of those capabilities. So it includes things like data management, to allow us to find and store data and make the data ready and accessible for analysis. Data preparation, which does a bit of pre-processing and has the data ready for the actual exploitation and full processing. Multimodality visualization is necessary if you want to look at the data, you want to see how it looks and understand what it's like. We have processing and exploitation tools, of course. These are the things that take the data and derive new products. And finally, analytics and automation, which can be run across the data to extract information automatically. The ENVI ecosystem is based on the analytics in ENVI. ENVI has been one of the premier image analysis tools for a long time and has a huge range of proven algorithms and capability to process imagery data and extract results. It's most widely known as a desktop tool. Behind ENVI is a wealth of proven technology for all sorts of image processing. The team has been working with ENVI for over 40 years, delivering this to end users around the world. Using ENVI as a baseline, we've added two new pillars to create the ENVI ecosystem. Firstly, ENVI Connect is a web-based tool aimed at image analysts. ENVI Connect combines image discovery and visualization with the analytics capability of ENVI in a web-based user interface. So a user can sit in front of a web browser, select imagery, run processing, and importantly, collaborate with colleagues to create derived data and information. The other pillar is ENVI Inform. ENVI Inform is a platform hosting the ENVI processing that allows workflows to run automatically and at scale because it's hosted in the cloud. This means it can scale to process huge amounts of data in parallel and shorten the amount of time it takes to get derived products from that data. It can also use its parallel processing to process data very quickly and get a faster response. Zach will now take a few minutes to introduce ENVI and ENVI Connect and explain how they relate to our scenario.
Thanks, Dave, for that nice introduction. Like Dave said, we're going to pivot to talk a little bit about the individual products that make up the ENVI ecosystem. I'm going to be starting with ENVI Desktop and ENVI Connect. If you haven't heard of ENVI, it's the industry standard for image processing and analysis when it comes to remotely sensed data. As Dave mentioned, ENVI has been around for a very long time and has its roots at the core of image science and serves as the foundation of the ENVI ecosystem. There are many different capabilities and ways that you can use ENVI, lots of different data formats. In fact, it's more than 200. And all these formats cover a wide variety of data types, including panchromatic, RGB or true color, multispectral, hyperspectral, SAR, and LiDAR data. Because there are so many things that you can do with ENVI, let's focus on a few quick scenarios that apply directly to disaster response. There are two core capabilities with ENVI that apply to disaster response for this slide, SAR and deep learning. Here we have two examples using SAR for flood detection and severe burn from a forest fire. These two examples are noteworthy because some natural disasters prevent you from being able to capture traditional optical imagery of the Earth's surface due to clouds or smoke. SAR allows you to see through both and still be able to extract meaningful information from from surface features. If you can see the ground, and for easily visible features, you can use technology like deep learning to train a model to find building damage and map that throughout a bunch of data sets. You could also use deep learning or other approaches to find things like landslide locations using change detection. Traditionally, performing analysis like this requires a bit of training and knowledge of how to work with imagery. Don't worry though, if you aren't an expert, the ENVI ecosystem provides other solutions for you, which brings us to ENVI Connect. Compared to ENVI Desktop, ENVI Connect is all about collaboration and helping make information accessible. ENVI Connect is a lightweight web application with basic tools for visualization and analysis. Being a web app, it also has a much smaller learning curve and is something users can typically pick up in just a few minutes without the need for having any sort of specialized training. Because ENVI is the core, or foundation, I guess you could say, of the ENVI ecosystem, ENVI can work with many data types out of the box and allows for some fun 2D and 3D visualizations, as you can see here. But this isn't everything that ENVI Connect can do. With the focus of ENVI Connect being for non-expert users, we've really worked to make a collaborative environment that allows you to easily find and visualize data, process imagery using workflows from ENVI Desktop, and share your findings so others can easily see what you've done. Here in just a few minutes, we're going to be circling back around to these topics and apply these with ENVI Desktop and ENVI Inform to show the ENVI ecosystem in action. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Dave so we can get to some of the things that I think are a little bit more exciting.
Thanks, Zach. ENVI Inform is an automated cloud-based processing platform for ENVI algorithms, as we've discussed before. It performs automated processing at scale, and it's hosted on Amazon Web Services. With ENVI Inform, you can take workflows defined in the ENVI desktop and deploy them to run automatically. It includes automated data discovery, so you can fetch data from online catalogues like the ESA Sci-Hub or ASF, the free Sentinel data. You can also read automatically from watch folders, so incoming data can be dropped and picked up by ENVI Inform for processing. On the output side, ENVI Inform can publish to various different locations. These include shared cloud storage, for example an Amazon AWS S3 bucket, online dashboards, or geographic information systems such as ArcGIS. Finally, it can be used directly to create reports. When considering ENVI Inform for disaster response, a key benefit is that it can be triggered to perform automated processing when an event occurs. So, when a request comes in for a particular area hit by a hurricane, it can search and find relevant data from online archives from before or since the event. It can download those data and run automated processing, for example, building damage assessment, flood detection, oil slick detection, and it can be used to indicate the extent of damage or problems on the ground. Additionally, ENVI Inform can watch a local archive or drop folder, so if you have a drone collection that's flown across the area, it can be dropped into a folder and ENVI Inform will pick it up and it will be processed on arrival. Once the insights from those ENVI Inform processes have been created, they can be published into, for example, an online dashboard so that users can look at the data. If we push them into ENVI Connect, those users can collaborate and review the data during their analysis, and it can form a part of their decision-making process. Now that we've covered the parts of the ecosystem, I'm going to hand over to Khalil to introduce the scenario that describes how all the pieces fit together.
As we have mentioned, today we are talking about disaster response. To help make it feel a bit more real, we wanted to approach our webinar from the perspective of an analyst and how the organization they are a part of can use the ENVI ecosystem to do their job. With that, as an analyst, you are responsible for assisting in the relief effort by providing a report of where buildings have been damaged after a hurricane. There are thousands of images for you to analyze, and once your work is done, you'll need to create a map with your findings that decision makers and the community can see to help direct time-critical aid. For our role as an analyst, we are going to be working with real-world data after a hurricane. To finish setting the stage for our analyst, we are working with data from Hurricane Delta. Hurricane Delta made landfall in early October 2020 and cost over $3 billion in damage. One of the reasons that we picked Hurricane Delta is because it has imagery that was captured over affected areas in Louisiana. This data comes from the NOAA Storms Events database and can be found with a quick internet search. Specifically, the imagery consisted of 1,200 image tiles, and the spatial extent of the imagery is shown in the screenshot on the left. Now that we have set the stage, let's briefly talk about how the parts of the ENVI ecosystem will be used before we show them in action.
Thanks, Khalil. This slide shows a usage of the ENVI ecosystem to meet the requirements of that disaster that Khalil outlined. Before anything happens, an imagery expert using ENVI on the desktop might define some workflows that can be used in this type of a scenario. In our case, perhaps to find damaged buildings. They can measure then how long it takes to run that workflow and what it requires. Maybe it has machine learning, maybe it has SAR data processing, all the goodness of ENVI. That workflow is deployed into ENVI Inform and is ready so that when the event occurs, ENVI Inform can be triggered to run the processing. Of course, what it'll do is discover the data, maybe the data before and after the hurricane event, or maybe data that's been dropped after a local collection into a watch folder. Pick that data up, process it, and create, in this example, a building damage layer. This is then passed to ENVI Connect, which allows analysts to collaboratively review the imagery and the building damage assessment automatically created, and to create situation reports. These situation reports can be passed along the chain to a common operating picture or used directly for decision makers. I'll hand over to Zach now to talk a little bit about the application of ENVI in this context.
The first step in our process is to use ENVI Desktop to detect building damage. Here we show processing an aerial image using ENVI Deep Learning to do just that. In our scenario, this is something that an expert would create. And once an expert has the deep learning model, they can automate the end-to-end workflow to detect buildings with deep learning and generate vectors from what's found. You might be asking yourself, why does automation matter here? If we tie back to our scenario, we have 1,200 images that we need to process with deep learning, and it's not feasible to do this manually. Additionally, each image takes about 5 or 10 minutes to process, so it's not something that realistically can be done me sitting down at a computer. This is where ENVI Inform comes in, running our processing at scale and up in the cloud.
As Zach said, what we need is a way of accelerating the processing for those 1,200 images. And that's where ENVI Inform really comes in. ENVI Inform, being cloud-based, allows us to take algorithms and workflows deployed from an image scientist or subject matter expert. We've talked about damage assessment for buildings, but this could be many things. Land displacement from SAR data, flood detection. We take those workflows and we access online data storage or uploaded data to automatically process them to create derived products. And it's this parallelization that really gives us the value here. So as an example, with 100 processing nodes, we can take the total processing time for those 1,200 images mentioned by Zach from about 3.5 days to a matter of hours. The results from this can be pushed nearly anywhere, GIS systems or dashboards, or in a moment we'll show them being pushed to ENVI Connect. But first, I'd like to give you a glimpse of what an output looks like straight from ENVI Inform. So, whilst I can't actually show you ENVI Inform running, it's really just an engine that does processing. I thought what I'd do is show you some of the outputs to give you an idea of what ENVI Inform is capable of. So what we've done here is we've taken 1,200 images from the airborne collect after the hurricane, and we've ENVI Inform has done that processing and pushed the output to an ArcGIS online or AGOL dashboard. So that's what you can see in front of you. So we can straight away see that there's about 239,000 detections of damage caused by the hurricane. So if I zoom in here, we can begin to see how that breaks down. There's two major areas that we've detected damage. So maybe we'll zoom in on this area here. And we can see from the dashboard where all those detections have come. We can see an artifact here. It's probably the edge of the acquisition rather than necessarily a sudden edge to the damage extent. But you can also, using the dashboard, we can load in some of the background data. So here's some of the 1,200 images that we process. This is a machine learning algorithm, a deep learning algorithm actually. And as I zoom in, the GIS system is giving me an updated view of the amount of damage within the extent of my window. So if I want to zoom in on a particular neighborhood, and maybe I'm going to go into this area here, we can see the area that was damaged, and we can see there's about 3,000 detected bits of damage within this space. You can use those statistics for insurance purposes or for other types of assessment to inform us about what's going on actually on the ground. So this data is being loaded in a dashboard, but at the moment it's fairly sort of one way. What we really want to do is hand this over to the analysts who are doing the operations so they can take a look at it, combine it with other data. And for that purpose, we've pushed the data into ENVI Connect. And I'll pass you over to Zach to talk a little bit more about that integration. Over to you, Zach.
Here, we can zoom in on where our data is located and search to find some of the tiles that we will work with. Once I find a data set, I can easily start marking damaged buildings using the feature counting tool located in the lower left of our display. From here, I can pan around and draw bounding boxes around homes that are damaged. I'm going to mark up a few damaged buildings, but while I do that, I want to point out that all of this is done from within the browser. This makes it accessible and very easy to use, not to mention all of the work that I have done gets saved, meaning that anyone else who finds this data set and opens the image will see what I've marked up so far. Pausing for a second, it's great that I can go through and manually find damaged buildings, but I have 1,200 images that I need to work through. Taking what Dave just talked about with ENVI Inform, we can process all of those images using ENVI Deep Learning and our automated workflow deployed to ENVI Inform, and then we can populate ENVI Connect with the results. To demonstrate this, let's find another scene that was already processed with ENVI Inform. Here you can see the data set that I found has 71 damaged buildings. From here, there's two things I can do. First, and what I'm doing now, is I can clean up the automated results that come from deep learning to remove false positives and include missing features. But depending on how quickly you need an answer, you could potentially leave this data as is and refine it as you go down the road. For either case, one of the big things here is that you're probably working with the centralized dashboard or data repository for a real disaster response scenario. So once you have the damaged buildings, depending on what you just decided to do with the outputs from ENVI Inform, We can then integrate and send that data to other GIS solutions or dashboards. And this is where I'll turn things over to Khalil to talk a little bit more about that.
As an analyst, having a centralized location where all of my analytic outputs can be stored is crucial for work that requires expeditious answers. In our scenario, we walk through various situations in which geospatial data can be leveraged to help provide answers to a disaster. However, this often leads to an abundance of data and products that can make management of the information relatively difficult. Having a common operational picture with various data layers already processed helps to ensure analysts can triage high-priority geospatial products to help get first responders, Red Cross, and any other resources deployed quickly to those in need the most. This slide depicts an example of a response to a natural disaster. The Command Post Computing Environment, or CPCE, is an example of a common operational picture leveraged by the U.S. Army. As it relates to our ecosystem, the value is that at the end of either a manual analyst workflow executed in ENVI Desktop or in ENVI Connect, or an automated one completed by cloud processing through ENVI Inform, the value is in the output, which allows for a relative decision-making. An analyst can focus her efforts on providing immediate relief to those who urgently need it, while the more complex products are being conducted by automated workflows. In turn, this leads to a more cohesive picture, one which allows analysts to make informed decisions thanks to more data points, rather than relying only on what they are able to accomplish themselves. The moral of the scenario is that every minute matters when responding to a disaster. The ENVI ecosystem can be leveraged to quickly provide answers during a disaster where every minute counts in getting relief and aid to the people in need.
Thanks, Khalil. So I just wanted to summarize what we've said today. We've talked about the rich legacy of ENVI, its analytics, its capability, and how that's now been transformed by being part of the ENVI ecosystem. By being combined with a web-based collaborative environment that can be used to share information and drive processing within analyst communities, and by being able to deploy those algorithms also to fully automated cloud-based platform with scalable processing to accelerate large data processing and provide insights. We have a complete system. Hopefully, we've also been able to communicate how when we take that system as a whole, it's much more than the sum of its parts. By bringing those pieces together, we get the synergy that comes from subject matter experts being able to deploy fully automatic analytics capability at scale, or analysts being able to take advantage of automated processing that's been generated by subject matter experts. So these collaborations that help you really get value out of your image processing chain, all rooted in the rich history of ENVI. Of course, this example is just one example. We're not trying to settle on a single case. Hopefully what we've done is shown that how, with this case, we could do many other things, and that you're already thinking about how this type of capability could work in your organization to save time, to deliver high-value products, to help collaboration. So we hope you've enjoyed the webinar. And we're now going to turn over for a question and answer session. Over to you, Dawn.
Awesome. Thanks, David and Zach. At this point, we're going to go ahead and address some of the questions that have come in. And as a reminder, you can always submit a question in the Q&A section of the dashboard. And at the end, we encourage you to go ahead and take that survey and provide us some feedback. So without further ado, let's take some of these questions. So the first one coming in is, do I have to buy all of these parts? Can I buy or use only one component? Can I use a desktop? Do I have to have desktop in order to work with Inform? And do I have to have desktop in order to work with ENVI Connect? Zach, you want to go ahead, or Khalil, one of you?
Yeah, sure. So all of these pieces that we've talked about today can also work standalone. That was kind of the goal of Dave and I's quick little introduction at the beginning to talk about each piece, working by itself, and making sure that we could also bring the story of how you can use them together. So together, separate. I know Dave and Don work with quite a few people that are just using like ENVI Inform for automation, and traditionally we have a lot of people that just use ENVI Desktop by itself.
Awesome. Dave, anything you want to add from an Inform perspective to expand upon that?
I think just worth mentioning that the analytics that go into ENVI Inform come from ENVI Desktop. So many times customers who use Inform are people who already know about desktop, especially image scientists that want to push their algorithms to a wider organization or a customer. But that's not necessary. So we also have customers who ask us or a third party to do the workflows and analytics for us to publish. So it can play either way. They certainly can be used separately, but often we see in Inform people using ENVI on the desktop and Inform combined.
Awesome. All right. The next question is to you, Zach. Are the workflows that you described things that are automatically included in ENVI Connect, or do I have to have a scientist that builds out a specific custom workflow and deploy that to ENVI Connect?
Yeah, great question. And this is something that would apply to Inform as well. So at least ENVI Connect has a few things that are out of the box, but traditionally the way that we've worked with customers is that they can create their own to extend what we have there. There's some basic capabilities for things like change detection, but if you wanted to do something a little bit more specialized, such as deep learning for building damage or types of aircraft or vehicles or whatever it might be, that's usually custom and comes as an add-on. And Dave, I don't know if you want to chime in there on Inform too for what kind of workflows run up there in the cloud.
Sure, yeah. So we have some standard workflows like ground displacement from SAR data for infrastructure monitoring. We are doing a lot with deforestation, AI detection, so oil spills or ship detection. So there's a few sort of standard things that come out of the box. Most often people have very specific ideas about what they would like, so that customization comes in there. But as you say, Zach, very similar story in Inform.
Awesome, great. So Dave, another question was, can you talk about the outputs? What types of things are being outputted from ENVI Inform? How do they get, you gave an example of Esri's AGOL, how does that work? Can you give a little background? People are kind of curious about that.
Sure, yeah. So most often we're finding that ENVI Inform is being used to transform images into features, really, GIS features. I mean, images into information is what we say, but most often that means features that get pushed into a dashboard or into, so we pushed into ArcGIS Online. We share data in a shared bucket, like an S3 bucket. Of course, you've seen we push information into ENVI Connect, and that works really, really well when we're talking about images and features as well. So there's all sorts of different things. But in general, it's producing those feature sets and then integrating with other tools that then can do further processing and present that data.
And I think just to expand off of that, we have a variety of different customers that have different requirements. There are people that want the output of a chip or a shapefile or an image with a bounding box, so they may want that, both as the image, the shapefile, and a GeoJSON that basically defines, what's in that. But the point is that ENVI Connect, we have a lot of flexibility in the way that we can output those different data products that can get consumed into a variety of different systems. As Dave mentioned, it could be AGOL, it could be into your own S3 bucket that you then have some process that picks it up and deploys that information into your existing operational systems. So it's very robust and flexible from that perspective. let's see. All right, I think that's what we've got today. I think we can go ahead and wrap up. Again, I'd like to thank everyone. You know, for your time. We're going to, like I said, publish the results or send out an email link tomorrow with a link to the presentation as well as a link to the recording. And we go ahead and encourage you guys to fill out the survey at the bottom. We really appreciate any feedback that you have. We take that information and feedback very seriously so that we can continue to improve and provide webinars that are meaningful to you. So again, thanks everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you have any questions about anything you've seen here, we only just began to scratch the surface. So feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to explore your specific needs.